Hello there and welcome to another Robot Wars tier list ranking. We're on the Second Wars now, and the Second Wars has tons of robots. I kind of misjudged how many robots there were because of course there's 6 robots per heat and there's 12 heats. However, there's also side events and, well, they kind of littered the already quite long list of robots even more. This is going to be quite an interesting one because this and Extreme 2 are both going to have a U ranking. The U ranking basically means unrankable. These are robots that you can't really judge whatsoever because they only briefly appeared and or didn't appear at all but were present in the battle. And Series 2 is notorious for this because of its grudge match special at the end of the series, which had several different events. However, majority of the robots in the events were not shown. In fact, there's 2 robots that are completely missing from this tier list, which is Deadline and Scorpion. Both robots appeared in the matches, but there's not a single picture or anything about them. Hell, Scorpion doesn't even have any description. The only thing we know is that it got destroyed by dead metal in the fight. And Deadline, that was a Craig Danby machine, well, who knows, maybe he was lying about it because the only thing we have is a CAD design and that's it. So as a result, 2 robots are completely missing and they're definitely going to be in the U ranking. But aside from that, let's just get onto the ranking, shall we? And starting off the list, we have Ortork. Ortork is the first of the Torque machines, or Team Torque machines. I don't think they were part of Torque of the Devil, although similar sounding names. Ortork from Series 2, I'm going to say this right now, I do not like the look of it. I think it looks hideous. It looks genuinely ugly. However, it does make up for the fact that it is a very effective robot. It's speedy, it's aggressive. But its weaponry didn't look very useful whatsoever. Its its body armor just looks plain and boring. It looks very scrappily put together. It doesn't look very clean. It looks very hideous. Honestly, that's the best I can describe Ortork. Ortork is a very hideous looking robot, but it's a very effective robot. It's kind of funny how the Team Torque machines all started off as, quite effective robots, and then I don't know, their quality seemed to have just decreased over time to the point they create basically joke bots. But yes, Ortork 1 is very ugly, but it's very effective. So effective, but poor design. Next up is the first of the U rankings, because Anarchy, which appeared in the featherweight battle, we have a picture of Anarchy. We know Anarchy was in the fight. I believe Anarchy got taken out straight away, so there's that. It didn't even appear in the highlights. It's a very ugly looking robot. I don't really like the look of Anarchy, so it would have ranked quite lowly anyway, but nothing much to say. Anarchy existed. Next up is Angel of Death. Angel of Death, I love the purple colour scheme. I think the robot looks quite pleasant. However, it didn't seem very effective. It was quite slow, quite ponderous, quite awkward around its movements, which is a real shame because I feel like... I got something in my teeth. I feel like... how can you tell this is live? I feel like this is a good-looking robot, and if it was a really effective robot that could move about aggressively and do all sorts of damage, it probably would have done quite well, but it wasn't very effective. It wasn't very good, and it's a real shame because it looks quite nice. The purple colour scheme really worked. Alright, so next up is another arguably unrankable robot, Armadillo. Armadillo was Adam Clark's featherweight, and it was shown more times in the pits than it was actually in the arena. Literally, there's so many shots of Adam Clark with corporal punishment, and Armadillo literally just right by it. I swear it appeared more times in the pits than we actually saw it in combat. A very unique looking robot. I quite like it. It looks like a cyber map from Doctor Who. I quite like that. I think it's quite a cool looking design. It's relatively basic in in some departments, the face doesn't look that great. But aside from that, it's a very unique and cool looking robot. I love it. Don't know how effective it is though, and unfortunately it's going to have to go in the U ranking because we genuinely have no idea. Next up is Armageddon. Now, Armageddon is one of these finds that I made a discovery a long time ago and published on the Robot Wars wiki. It was one of these robots because at one point someone else on the wiki found a bunch of links to Series 2 rehearsals, and because I love failed to qualify robots, I love looking through them, and I just went mad with creating articles with Armageddon being one of them. And it wasn't until like over a year later it was discovered that Armageddon actually appeared in the show itself. By some simple evidence and diagnosis, we were able to suss out that this robot was in battle during the lightweight melee. There's a picture of it being attacked by Dead Metal, I believe. No, Sergeant Bash. And it was fighting with Sergeant Bash off to the side, and that was it. And it's amazing what the internet sleuths can do, or the wiki sleuths can do, by just simply observing pictures and realizing, there's a connection here. Look at the internals, the drive and everything. Unfortunately, there's not much to say about Armageddon. In fact, this picture of Armageddon is from the rehearsals itself. But I just felt like talking about that because I think it's one of those like discoveries that I love. It's a bit like Medijunk, when I made that discovery. That was... and of course then someone found out that he was in Series 3, which was awesome. But I digress. Automatic Jack. Automatic Jack, I don't know whether this one was one that was actually meant to appear in the competition, but had to withdraw for whatever reason. It's a cool looking robot, but again, we barely saw it, so I can't really say anything about it. That's the problem with these highlights, is that you can't talk about most of these robots. You can just say, okay, it looks cool, the end. Next up is Behemoth, the first Behemoth. Now, obviously, we all know about Behemoth. We all know what Behemoth looks like. This is the first Behemoth. And Behemoth, it's got its like trademark scoop, and it's got like the L-shaped body, which the scoop is attached to. I always debate myself which is the ugliest Behemoth. Is it the Series 2 one or the Series 6 one? And honestly, like, whilst this is obviously the first version of Behemoth, you gotta have some excuses. It's not pretty, especially considering like the later Behemoths, especially Series 3 and 4's Behemoth, which looked beautiful, and even the reboot Behemoth looked wonderful. This one definitely is... it's a rough start, I guess you could say. It's very patchy looking. In fact... Anthony Pritchard even revealed that the battery is literally being held on by like one like very flimsy metal like flap. It's not shown on this picture in particular, but on the other side the battery is like being held by one metal flap. Imagine if it got toppled over. What it took was that, and the battery would have just disconnected. Amazing that it got to semi-finals. It's funny how this is arguably the most successful Behemoth until Series 10, of course. It's still a great-looking design. That's the thing. Even though I'm saying this is the worst-looking Behemoth, or one of the worst-looking Behemoths, it is still a great design. I've never understood the Eat Me, I'm Done thing on the front of the scoop. I'm kind of glad they got rid of that later on. But still, a great-looking design, a great and very effective robot. I think the problem with me is it's hindsight. We know that Behemoth is going to get much better later on, but yeah, it's still a great start. Aside from the battery being literally exposed and being protected by one metal flap. That does look weird. Berserk. Now, Berserk is one of the side event competitors, Jesus Christ, who we actually saw. It fought in one melee, and I think it was in the same battle as Automatic Jack. I don't really remember. And then it fought in the final. In the final, it didn't really do much. It sort of like drifted off and then died. But nonetheless, it was still a very, very, very good-looking robot. I quite like the look of Berserk. Although, saying that, again, hindsight, Series 3 had a much better looking Berserk, in my opinion. I think Berserk looks so much better in Series 3. But that's not to say that this one isn't bad looking. I think it still looks great. I love that it's like, it looks like a red angry face, that's just wonderful. The weaponry looks great. I love the forklifts, which were quite useful as well, and the scoop. Yeah, Berserk's pretty cool. It was somewhat effective. It did break down, but I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to rank it in A. It's still a great robot. It's great overall. Body Hammer. Now, Body Hammer has had a bit of an upgrade from the previous series. It went from the lush copper sort of chrome look to a black look with yellow like details on the front. It didn't do very well. It lost in the first round, i.e. the gauntlet, after it got itself trapped because it's way too low. And then in the Internet Insurrection, I believe it lost to Griffin. But in the Internet Insurrection, it was actually able to do a lot better, and we actually saw a bit more from it. Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on Body Hammer is more or less the same. I don't think it's as pretty looking as the Series 1 one. I do prefer the shinier copper look. But it was still pretty effective, even though we didn't see much of it. So, yeah, another A rank, in my opinion. This robot, I believe it's Botweiler. There's two robots in this series. There's one called Rottweiler and one that's called Botweiler. Botweiler is another one of these unfortunate cases of it's going to have to be in the U ranking. And even more so because it looks brilliant. It genuinely looks beautiful. This is a super heavyweight. And it didn't even appear in the highlights, this one. We only got an image because thankfully they took pictures of these events. So we got loads of pictures of them. But yeah, I mean, it would have been better if we actually saw this thing. It looks really nice. Obviously, it must not have been very effective because it got eliminated before Sockham and I believe Demon Duck. But still, I quite like the look of it. I think it looks wonderful. It's like a big version of Behemoth, like a much bigger version. I would have loved to have seen a fight with this thing, but it might not have been very good, hence the highlights. Still, nonetheless, Now on to Brute. Brute. You know the term box on wheels? Brute is that defined. Brute is literally a wooden box with wooden wheels. There is nothing more to say. It is just a black wooden box with wooden wheels. It got destroyed by Matilda. This is an F ranking. I'm sorry, but Brute is just dreadful. Like, the only reason why Brute is somewhat remembered is because of the Matilda sawing straight through the wooden wheels. JP even saying, you know, this is the danger of having wooden wheels, and you have this kid like looking shocked that his wooden box has been destroyed by a house robot with a big chainsaw. Yeah. So next up is Bumblebop. Bumblebop appeared in the Reserve Rumble. So technically speaking, it was a reserve robot for Series 2, but it just didn't get a chance to shine. Bumblebop obviously appears in Series 3 later on in the actual competition. Bumblebop from Series 2, we didn't really see much of it. It got attacked by Sakilot at one point. It sort of like, well, bumbled about, ironically. And I believe it drew alongside Jim Struts in the Reserve Rumble. And yeah, I mean, I quite like the design of Bumblebot. I won't like. I kind of don't hate the design. I know some people really don't like Bumblebot's design. But effectiveness, it was slow. His hammer was always like facing down. Like even this picture has the hammer like down. It didn't like rise back up. I mean, it wasn't brilliant. But I quite like the design, so I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. Caliban. Now, Caliban is the first robot eliminated from the series. It's this big purple full-body spinner, or it would have been like an overhead spinner, sort of like a Mauler from BattleBots. Unlike Mauler, who actually looks pretty cool looking, Caliban looks hideous. Like, it looked hideous. It looked hideous without the full-body armor. In the full body armor, Caliban looks pretty nice. I won't lie. It actually looks really decent looking. But when it doesn't have the full body armor, it wasn't very good. And its driving was pitiful. Like the team that built Caliban, who would go on build Daisy Chopper, probably the saltiest team in Robal's history. Like they could not stand the fact that when they lost, I believe they demanded a rematch in one of their fights, and they still lost. You know, that's how salty this team was. So I don't really have much respect for the team behind Caliban, personally. I think, sure, they did kind of get screwed up by Sakilot, but at the same time, like, their attitude stunk. Caliban, Caliban is one of those robots where it might have been good, but we don't actually know. It's design in Series 2 with the Mauler look, I guess you could call it, doesn't look very great. But in the full body armor, it looks okay-ish. I'm going to put it in D because it's really just it's an unknown quantity, but it's an unknown quantity that we saw, so you can't really say much. So, this runners-up of Series 2, Cassius. Wonderful robot, a classic by all means. The first UK robot to self-write, to have a proper flipper and flip robots over. Cassius, built by Rex Garrett, of course. It looks stunning. It looks absolutely stunning. This is a robot which would go on to inspire future generations of robots. So it's definitely got that pedigree. I love the, obviously, tagline from the real Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. And I love how the colour scheme actually reflects that bee by being, black and yellow. That's quite a nice touch. I just love the look of Cassius. I love the Perspex armor on top. Effectiveness, he was very effective. However, there is one downside to Cassius, and that was the bopping up and down. Cassius had a tendency to bop up and down, which made it almost impossible for it to be able to get under robots properly and flip them. It would struggle half the time, and then it would flip them, or it'd flip them after or before it even touches or gets underneath the robot, which is kind of unfortunate. And I wish that pop-up didn't just pop up. God damn it. So yeah, Cassius. I think Cassius deserves an S ranking. Just in general, it's just such a superb robot. The bopping up and down is the only issue that I can come up with. But aside from that, Cassius is absolutely wonderful. Unfortunately, we have Challenger next. Challenger, I don't know what to say about Challenger. It wasn't that effective in the show, and in terms of being a design, or in terms of the design is okay-ish, I guess. It's I prefer the Series 3 version of Challenger personally. I think that one looks far better, even though it's mainly just a slight adjustment to the design. But this one, I guess it's a great design, but ineffective. I guess it's better than Bumblebar, I'd argue. Yeah, Challenger is okay. It's not nothing to write home about. Chaos, on the other hand, I love the look of Chaos. Chaos's flipper wasn't great. And obviously we know that Chaos is going to become Chaos 2 later on. And so we already know that this thing is going to be, top class. But Chaos 1, the flipper wasn't very great. I won't lie. The flipper was it was like Deertool's flipper in Series 3 and even the bucket in Series 5. It's just sort of sprung out like that, and it would be up for the rest of the match, and it would slowly come back down again. So the flipper sucked, but it looks amazing. I love the look of Chaos. Chaos, I've said it in the previous video, I'm a sucker for Perspex armor. I think Perspex armor looks wonderful on robots. I love seeing the internals and all that of them. Yeah, this is just a really good looking robot. It was very effective. It was speedy. It was move out. There's a reason why Chaos, pretty much everything from Chaos was just moved into Chaos 2 later on, because it was already pretty good. It just needed the firepower, and it would have been absolutely top class. So yeah, Chaos S ranking without a doubt. Love Chaos. Corporal Punishment, the first of the Corporal Punishment machines from Adam Clark, the WV2. But this one is quite funny because it has a scoop, but the scoop doesn't really exist. Well, it has a scoop, but it doesn't really move. It's just static. And the scoop looks like a claw. It's like the most subversive design choices ever. You think it's going to be crushing robots. You think it's going to be, scooping robots up or something like that. It doesn't do any of that. It just rams into them. It was somewhat unreliable. The problem with Adam Clark's machines is they always looked nice, but they were always unreliable. 259, for example, wonderful robot, very destructive, but as soon as it gets to a second round, as soon as it meets a robot that can handle the punishment or is just as destructive, it just cannot work. Wobot, wonderful looking robot, wonderful design. It just couldn't work. Basically, and it's a shame because Corporal Punishment is another one of these robots. It looks great. It just doesn't really work that well. And honestly, Series 2s and Series 3s for that matter, Corporal Punishment isn't that bad. It's actually pretty good. So honestly, it wasn't that terribly unreliable. It's an okay robot. I'm going to put it in the A ranking just about. I think it's a good looking robot, and I think it's slightly more effective than some of the later machines, but still it has its reliability issues. Cruella has returned with a different design, and Cruella was the robot, by the way, which Medijunk was swapped out with. Medijunk was actually meant to be in the show, was swapped out with Cruella for reasons we do not know yet, and obviously Medijunk would appear later on in Series 3's opener, being destroyed by Sergeant Bash and Dead Metal. Whereas Cruella, I believe, just got eliminated in the first round in the gauntlet. I actually think Cruella's design here is a massive improvement over the Series 1 design. Series 1 design is very boring looking, very uninspired. This one looks beautiful. I love the color scheme. I love the patterning on it. It looks so much better. It's got a big saw blade at the back. It looks far better. Effectiveness, not very effective. That's all I'm going to say. It wasn't very effective. I believe it's basically a stock robot. I'm going to put Cruella above the other. I'm going to put it below Angel of Death, because Angel of Death looks prettier. But Cruella, still great design, but ineffective. This one, I believe this is Shadow Fiends, or is it Damocles? This is the problem with these lightweights, is that there were so many of them. We generally don't know the names of half. Well, we know the names of them, but we don't know which is which. I'm gonna assume this is Damocles. Damocles had a saw blade at the back, I believe. It was like a double wedged sort of robot. It was white. It appeared very briefly. I'm going to put it there. Next up is Death Jester. Death Jester appeared very briefly in the highlights. It was already upside down. It didn't even do anything. So it was flipped over straight away. Death Jester was basically a big box. Now, the thing about Death Jester is this is another robot that should have appeared in the main series. But for whatever reason just withdrew, and it actually looked like a Axelbot. For those who don't know what an Axelbot is, think of Gabriel or Stinger from the future, basically. It basically looked like that. And what's interesting about this one is if you look closely at the super heavyweight version, they've still got the same body. They've just put a big cage over it, basically. Which kind of ruins the design completely, which is a real shame. But yeah, Death Jester, we barely saw anything of it. I'm going to put it right there. Death Track. Now, this is the definition of a great-looking design, but ineffective. This robot right here, this robot looks absolutely beautiful. I really love the look of Death Track, but it could not be controlled. And it was so, it was just flying all over the place. It was so uncontrollable and unreliable. It died straight away. Shame, because I think Death Track could have done quite well. I think Death Track is one of those robots which looks quite cool, but if it was better controlled, it might have, I don't think it would have won any, got to the semi-finals or grand final, but it would have at least done okay-ish, had it been better controlled. It seemed speedy across the arena. Yeah, it's one of those robots which it looks great. It looks really stunning. Visually, it looks amazing, but yeah, it just wasn't effective whatsoever. Now for a robot which, when I was young, I thought this was Cunning Plan. I thought this was a successor for Cunning Plan because it looks just like Cunning Plan almost, except with a big saw blade. And this is Demolition Demon. Demolition Demon was the robot which controversially lost to Napalm in the first episode, the first heat. And honestly, I personally believe Demolition Demon should have won. This robot should have gone to the semi-finals, but no, instead it's Napalm because, the pedigree of being a former Series 1 robot. Demolition Demon looks just like Cunning Plan, I will admit. It's just got a big saw blade at the back and a spike at the front, mind you. It's much bigger as well. It's an okay-ish design. It's nothing to write home about. It was very effective, though. It was able to like withstand the house robots attacking. It was able to go under and push around napalm, what have you. It was a very, very effective robot. It just wasn't... its design is somewhat basic, but I can look past that. I'm going to put this in A. I think it's an okay robot. Overall, Demon Duck. Of all the super heavyweight designs, Demon Duck is actually my favorite. I love the look of Demon Duck. It's amazing to look at. It's got these bubble eyes at the top. It's got this massive scoop, which is meant to be the beak. It's a big tracked design. The issue with Demon Duck, even though it got to the grand final of the super heavyweights showdown and actually managed to be shown on telly, is the fact that its armor just flaked off. Like, literally, its armor looked like it was made out of like paper. Like, all it took was like one little like touch and it would just flake off easily. The scoop broke off, I believe, twice. Yeah, like its heat was like brutal. It got destroyed, and in the final, I don't think it did very well either. Which is a real shame because I think Demon Duck looks amazing. Demon Duck, great design, but rather ineffective. Demon. Now, Demon is interesting because Demon is a very slow robot. It has a very basic looking design to the point that I honestly don't know where to put it, because it was effective. It was able to move across. It was able to push against other robots, but at the same time, it's kind of a dull looking robot. And it's kind of weird in a way because its successor is Wild Thing. So, Wild Thing, we all know, is this super fast, really good looking robot, and yet this was its predecessor, Demon, this slow, rather dull block in the arena. Yeah, I mean, it at least could function, but it's D tier. So next up is Disruptor. Disruptor, it's funny, I was talking about like why there weren't any robots that use like circular saw arms like Dead Metal from Series 1 and 2, and kind of forgot about Disruptor a bit. Disruptor is a Heat finalist that lost to Panic Attack. It's got a great design. The design of Disruptor is wonderful. Effectiveness, it was pretty okay. It wasn't anything to write home about. It was okay-ish. Yeah, like Disruptor, I don't know what else to say. It's got a wonderful design, really beautiful looking robot. It did well. It was rather effective, but at the same time, it was so big and bulky, it was kind of awkward. I'm going to put it, again, this is one of those low, like, A tiers where it's like, it's okay, but it's not anything to write home about. Doodlebug. Doodlebug appeared extremely briefly in the middleweight championship. We have nothing else to say. It got destroyed by Dead Metal alongside Scorpion, but we didn't see Scorpion. It's a definite... Don't know what else to say. It's at least, we got somewhat of a vague look. It looked like it had a little axe and it had like big wheels, and yeah, it looked So Dreadnought. Now, previously I said Dreadnought is a great design but ineffective, and my sentiment more or less stays the same, except this Dreadnought actually was a little bit more effective. It was able to survive a bit more. Its link fell out, unfortunately, during the battle, but at least looks... It did a little bit better. And the design is a massive update. The little forks, which looks pretty pathetic, all things considered, they've been replaced with these big, beefy forks. The design's mostly the same. It's still wonderful to look at. I'm going to put it, like, it at least started working a little bit better. So I'm going to actually put it up into the A ranking now. It's below Berserk and Behemoth because I think they're far better machines. Speaking of a brilliant update to a design, and especially a design which I put in F tier, a design that absolutely sucked in Series 1, but they managed to just do a 180 and do a fantastic design, and that's Elvis. Elvis, wow, look at it. It looks like Elvis. It looks amazing. It looks stunning. I think why didn't they do it with this the first time around? It's actually got a lifter, which wasn't too bad either. The lifter was actually pretty okay-ish. It was very slow. And its sword blade wasn't anything to write home about either. The body is mostly the same, except it doesn't bop up and down and lift itself up, and it doesn't have a spike that spews out. Elvis looks amazing, and they've got this big hat. This is one of the best designs in Series 2, in my opinion. It's such a wonderful design. I'm actually going to put it in A. I think this is such a great design. I'm actually going to put it above Berserk, because it was actually pretty effective this time. It wasn't just a shitty robot. It was actually able to survive, I believe, the whole fight against Behemoth. It just didn't win. Enzyme is one of those forget-me-bots. It's one of those robots that you barely, if at all, remember in the series. And yeah, it actually got to the arena fights, I believe. I'm trying to think, who was the Heat finalist for this one? Because it was the same heat with Plunder Bird. I know Plunder Bird wins. It wasn't Enzyme, was it? It was either Enzyme or Demon. No, it wasn't. It was the Mule. The Mule was it. Enzyme. Yeah, Enzyme. It's a very odd-looking robot. It almost reminds me of like a bug when you look at it up close. With all the little mandibles and all that. It's a unique-looking robot. I will give it that. Effectiveness, it was... Honestly, I'm struggling to remember Enzyme. It's one of the, like I said, this is one of those forget-me-bots. It's one of those robots that you really don't remember at all. And yet it was there. It was there. I mean, this is an official image from the website, I believe. It is, because I got this fucking image. Enzyme. It was okay. This is definitely like... It's an okay robot. I quite like the design in a way. I'm just gonna put it. I'm gonna put it in D. It's the high D tier. It's a very like odd looking robot. It's an okay looking robot. It's nothing to write home about. It's nothing reliable, massive, anything like that. Flirty Skirty. Flirty Skirty is a big box on wheels. Except it can like flap itself about. It got destroyed massively by Sakilot. He just tore this thing apart. That's what I remember from Flirty Skirty. It got destroyed in the battle with Ivanhoe. Flirty Skirty isn't the most attractive looking robot. It's very basic looking. It wasn't even that effective. It's kind of at least it's not completely shit. Forklift is a robot which, it's crap. It's not very good, but I kind of like. I like Forklift. I like Forklift's Revenge in Series 3 as well. It's one of those robots which I kind of have a soft spot for. It's not dreadful. I quite like the fact that it is literally just an oversized forklift, or an undersized forklift, actually. It's memorable because it's the one that got just battered by Shunt, and it just left all these holes across it. It was, it's wonderful, that fight. Mainly because a Reserve Rumble wasn't really a Reserve Rumble. It's more like a House Robot Rebellion. Forklift, I like the design, but it was not effective whatsoever. I mean, I'm a sucker for its design, I won't lie. I'm going to put it right up there because I actually do quite like it. Speaking of designs which are effective, GBH. GBH is a beautiful robot. Like I said previously in Series 1, I believe I said Scrapper is the ugly duckling. Like it was a quite effective robot, but it wasn't very pretty. GBH is the opposite. It is very effective and it's very pretty. I love the look of GBH. I love the shiny armor it's got. I love the big oversized scoop it has, which is wonderful. It has saw blades on the back. The saw blades aren't very useful. They kind of they weren't very good. But everything about GBH wonderful. I love the look of it. I love the functionality of it. GBH is just fantastic. It was a worthy semi-finalist, and honestly I'm actually going to put it in S tier because I like it that much. I loved the look of GBH, and they do return years later with GBH2 in Series 6, or they do return in Series 3, and we'll have to get there when we get there with Facet, and Facet is wonderful. That's all I'm going to say about Facet. It is beautiful. Next up is Griffin. Griffin's an odd robot to talk about because on one hand, Griffin is kind of an unreliable mess that, well, it wasn't really that unreliable. It was just wasn't that effective at moving about that well. It kind of like got itself stuck and was too slow about its decision making. But at the same time, its lifter was so wonderful. This robot was clearly inspired by the likes of like Biohazard. It wasn't as effective as Biohazard, but still wonderfully designed. Griffin's a hard robot to talk about because it's like it didn't do very well at all. It lost in the first round, and then it won the Internet Insurrection where it dominated every other robot, and then it sort of did pretty poorly in Series 3 as well, with pretty much the same design. Griffin is just it's just tough robot to talk about because it's like it's not ineffective, but it's not very effective. But at the same time, it was beautifully designed and engineered. I'm actually going to put it in A tier. I think this is a very good robot. It's just let down by what happened in it. It just had bad luck. It's one of those robots that had extreme amount of bad luck despite it having a great design. Groundhog is quite funny because this is the Firestorm team's first robot. Groundhog is a very unique and wonderfully engineered robot. I wouldn't say it's effective. I'm going to say that right now. It didn't seem that effective. It seemed very awkwardly, because of how like engineered and how like complex the robot was, its functionality suffered as a result. It just didn't seem to be able to survive that well. That said, I think that it's a great looking robot, but functionality wise, it wasn't that great. I'm gonna put him just there. Great design, but very ineffective. Now, on the opposite end of the scale, we have a effective robot which just looks incredibly ugly, and this is Hardvark. Hardvark is, once again, one of these ugly ducklings. It's a very effective and very well, like, accomplished robot, but its design is just, I don't know if any of you are old enough, but if you remember, like, when you buy paper from a shop or you got paper ready for printers, they always used to come in these big, parcel packages almost. It looks like that. That's what Hardvark looks like. It looks like a big parcel package. It's got two little like lifting forks. I don't think the lifting forks ever really did anything. It was mostly all pushing power. Hardvark is a very effective robot, but it's an ugly duckling. I wouldn't say it's as bad as Ortalk, but it's not the most pleasant looking, is it? Hard Cheese, on the other hand, I love the look of Hard Cheese. I love the little rubber like mouse on top. It's funny because when I saw the reboot, because I saw some clips online before it was aired, and there was a Mega Mouse had like basically what was another Hard Cheese called in the arena, which was kind of cool to see. But I digress. Hard Cheese has always been one of my favorite middleweights. It's a very basic looking robot. It's just a wedge, but it's a wedge that managed to win the middleweight championship. Now, we didn't see much of it in Series 2, and this is the problem. Because we didn't see much of it, it's kind of hard to talk about. We know we've seen it later on. That's the thing. We see it later on. We know how effective it is in Series 3 and Extreme 1, but we don't really know much about it now. And it pains me to say this, but Hard Cheese, you're going in the U ranking. Havoc. Havoc got to the Heat Final. Havoc's got interchangeable weapons. That's pretty good. It has a whopping high ground clearance. It is a big, boxy, wedged robot. It doesn't look the most pleasant. I'm going to say that right now. I think it looks pretty ugly. I'm going to say that right now. It's a very ugly, boring-looking robot. Is it terrible? Not really. I'm going to put in the effective but poor design. It's very basic looking, isn't it? Inquisitor, on the other hand, Inquisitor, on the other hand, is a robot that's infamous because it's the first robot Razer technically lost to as a result of reliability problems. I believe, if I'm remembering it rightly, in the Ultimate Warrior, Team Razer revealed that basically they told the team to back up into them, which caused the flail to hit something on Razer, and it hit like a switch basically that caused Razer to break down. And it's a real shame because like Razer was just destroying this thing. I think that the flail and the chainsaw look is pretty cool. I think it looks pretty cool, all things considered, Inquisitor. But effectiveness, well, it kind of limped its way through, let's be honest. It kind of limped its way through. It was decimated by Razer in the Heat semi-final, but it wasn't dreadful. It just, like that, this is the problem. Inquisitor is one of those robots that survived, not because it survived because of anything, anything that it did itself, but rather because of sheer luck. It's one of those lucky robots. But it's not dreadful. It's not dreadful. I'm gonna put you just around here. Come on, there you go. Oh, I love the look of Ivanhoe. Ivanhoe is a beautiful, beautiful robot. Heat finalist, lost to GBH, but was quite effective. Like the spear and the axe, surprisingly so, worked quite well in unison. I mean, the axe didn't really do all much, but the spear did. Pushing power is great. I love the fact that this is basically just a giant knight's helmet. I love that so much. Ivanhoe, obviously a lot of people know Ivanhoe more for its success as Splinter, but Ivanhoe is just a beautiful looking robot. It is genuinely one of the most beautiful looking robots in Series 2, in my opinion. And it was quite effective. And because I'm giving it such high praise, I think Ivanhoe deserves an S ranking because it is just wonderful. And it's up there with its rival GBH. He beat it. Jim Struts. I always get Jim Struts and Miss Struts confused with each other because they're both called Struts. And there's also Noah Struts that appeared in Technic Games, if I remember rightly. But I digress. Like, Jim Struts, it's quite an interesting robot. Like, I was talking to Martin Dawson of the Millianbug team the other day, and he said that when he was at filming, Jim Struts was just massive to stand by. And I know in Technic Games they had another, I forgot who it was. Oh no, I know what it was called. It's called Tina Trex. And that thing, when they stood right by it, was basically the size of them. So, this is quite a large robot. Jim Struts is a very large robot. I quite like the face of it. I've always loved the face of it and Miss Struts. I don't know why, it just looks so cool. It's very well engineered. It's a very wonderful looking robot. It obviously is very slow. It's not really going to win anything, although it did win this. When I mean by win this, I mean it won the Reserve Rumble, but only because I don't think the House Robots could really do anything to it. Jim Struts, yeah, I'm going to put Jim Struts quite high up. I think it's pretty good. I'm going to put it there. Kick Robot is the super heavyweight champion. It's one of the few robots in Robots history that has never lost a single battle because, well, he couldn't continue. This is such a great looking robot. It's a very simplified looking robot when you look at it on a standpoint, but when you realize what weaponry it has, it just makes it even better. Like, it has these like lifting forks that go all the way. It's sort of like Shockwave later on with the scoop. Imagine that, but it just hasn't got the scoop. It's just got two spears. It looks great. It's very effective. What more can I say? I think this is a very good looking robot, and I'm actually going to put it in S tier because I think it is that good looking. Killdozer. Killdozer is a robot that looks very good looking. This is obviously by the same team that does Razorblade later on, which is another beautiful looking robot. This team knows their stuff when it comes to visuals. I think if it was more effective, it probably would have done quite well. I think the scoop and the like bodywork. It looks like it could have done really well, and it did decently against Ivanhoe, so it wasn't dreadful. It just got screwed over by the house robots, who just crumpled this robot to pieces. Yeah, I'm actually gonna put it in A tier because I think it actually was a really good robot, but it just kind of got let down because of circumstances. Kilohertz. Their debut in Robot Wars Team Hertz. Kilohertz from Series 2 is probably my least favourite of the Team Hertz designs, only because of the flat like axe they have, and it just doesn't look as great. But obviously this is, their first robot, so you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. Whenever it's the first robot, just remember it's going to evolve. So Kilohertz, speedy across arena. Reliability wise, it did sort of like smoke up against Roadblock, I believe. So, it does have a little bit of an issue in that sense. But nonetheless, I still think it did pretty decently. It was a maddening robot. Its reliability just wasn't there. And that's why I can't really give it the A ranking. I'm also not a fan of its axe in this, but then again, like I said, it's all because of hindsight. We know later on it's going to get really good. But until then, not really there. So it's an A ranking. And I'm going to have to, expand, the screen. Because this is, this is going to be big. Kilotron. I love Kilotron. I do not like the orange colour scheme they did with this, but with the dark lighting, it's not that obvious, so it's, I don't think it's that bad. I do prefer the pink, personally. But this Kilotron, Series 2 Kilotron, was a beast. There's a reason why this thing got into Grand Final, because it just hammered away, and it just went straight through robots. Like, that fight against Behemoth in particular, it's just, brutal. This is a very brutal robot, but a very brilliant robot, and a good-looking robot, even despite the colour scheme being not the best, let's be honest. But nonetheless, I love Kilotron. Kilotron is awesome. Kilotron rocks. I'm going to put them in third. King Buxton. Now, King Buxton, we all know, is a massive all-star robot. I love the look of King Buxton in its later forms. King Buxton from Series 2 is the most successful of the King Buxton machines. But it's also the one which I don't really like the look of. I'll be honest, I'm not really a fan of King B from Series 2, only because it is a very, it just doesn't look that visually appealing, and I don't really like the little forks it had. Obviously, later on, it gets much better, and Series 3, ironically, despite having more or less the same design as the Series 2 version, had a slightly better design, and all it did was add a logo and colour the forks. That sort of stuff. Oh, pardon me. Like I said, can you tell these are done live? But King Buxton from Series 2, I like it's effective design. Now, that's the thing. It's a very effective design. It was the most successful of the King Buxton machines, but in terms of visuals, it's just, it's kind of boring. Which kind of sucks, because I want to rank it quite highly, because I love the King B team. I love King B in general. But I think the later versions are just so much more visually beautiful. This one goes in effective, definitely effective at the top part, but its design is where it drops. The forks don't look very good, nor does the actual robot itself. Lateral Force. Lateral Force was a robot that appeared in the Reserve Rumble. It looks quite impressive. It looked quite impressive, but it died straight away. It literally moved 2 centimeters and then died. That's about it, and it got shunted by shunt. So Lateral Force is definitely going to be it's a good looking robot, but a very, very, very ineffective machine. It's slightly better than Bumblebop in terms of looks. Leviathan. So we saw Laybot last series, and Laybot is a robot which I thought was pretty good for its time. Leviathan looks great. I think Leviathan looks great. It's a wonderful looking robot. It's certainly a step up from Laybot. Its armor was very flaky. It's to the point that taps, ramming attacks, all sorts of stuff will like cause the armor to shift off slightly. It's something that isn't too bad. It's going in the great design but ineffective category. I'm gonna put it below Groundhog. Next up is Limpet, and once again this is a great design but really ineffective robot. Limpet is interesting because once again this is a robot which later on the team would create a far more famous and far more beloved robot, and that is 13 Black. Limpet, I've always loved the look of Limpet. Limpet is just such a visually gorgeous looking robot. And I know that later on when they tried to apply for Series 3 and 4, they tried to have a furry version of Limpet. I don't mean furry as in those degenerates. I mean by furry as in it's, you know, the fur on it. Which, honestly, I wish we had that. I genuinely do. I think it looks great. It looks like it would be a very effective robot. Unfortunately, Limpet wasn't very effective. It was kind of tedious what way it moved about. It didn't do too badly, but it lost in the second round in the trials. Its track just got damaged multiple times. It's an unfortunate case of if it was slightly better, it would have been amazing, but we didn't get that chance. Obviously, it was created as an antweight, and I believe even a featherweight by the team. So, you know, I think Limpet goes at the top of great design, but ineffective because it was almost there. I'm going to have to expand the screen. Or minimize it, I should say. Watch as the video changes slightly. So Loco is a robot that, once again, very effective robot. It doesn't look very good. It is a very ugly looking robot. The logo is spray painted on in green. It's got all these pictures around the side of like people like of these cartoon characters like screaming and getting angry. I guess that's for the name Loco. But aside from that, it's effective but ugly. that's all I'm going to say. Effective but ugly. I'd argue it's worse than All-Talk. Actually, yeah, All-Talk and Loco stay on the same boat, more or less. Mace. Now, Mace, I love the Mace machines. I love Gemini. Obviously, I'm going to be very biased towards Mace. Mace is a gorgeous looking design, absolutely wonderful. I always debate which is better. Is it the Series 3 version or the Series 2 version in terms of the look? Because Mace, I don't know, but the Mace's design changes only slightly. Like in Series 2, it has like a black and yellow striped pattern, whereas Series 3 has a red and black pattern. I do like them both, and I always debate which is better. Because it's so hard, because they are basically the same machine, despite being called Mace 1 and Mace 2. Nonetheless, Mace is just gorgeous. Very good machine. It was almost deserving of a grand final placement. It just never got the chance. Malice. Now, Malice looks like a fat version of Apollo in Series 8. Which is quite funny to think about, except it doesn't have a flipper and it's got a saw blade at the front. Malice, now, I like Apollo. Apollo looks awesome. But Malice looks okay. I'm going to say that right now. Malice looks okay, but effectiveness, no. Just no. That's all I'm going to say about Malice. No. I'm a sucker for design. Megahertz. I've always loved Megahertz's look. Megahertz from Series 2, Series 3, not Series 3, Series 6 and even Series 7. I've always loved that look for Megahertz. I love the bright yellowy orange computer screen with the face on it. It's one of those designs that is stuck in your head and you can't help but look away. It's not a bad robot, all things considered. It was just kind of let down by luck. So I'm actually going to put Megahertz in A tier because it was one of those robots that it wasn't dreadful. It just sort of got let down by, its situation. Now, Milliamberg, we all know Milliamberg, especially from Series 4, where it got torn apart by Razer. It's funny because all the Milliamberg looks, This is the only one that looks like a bug. Like, this is the only one that actually looks like an insect. I know, obviously, it's a pun on Millennium Bug. It's such a wonderful design. I love Millian Bug's look. In terms of effectiveness, it lost, I believe, in the football trial, which is a real shame because you'd think like with big, pincers at the front, it'd be doing quite well, but it didn't. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was always, Millian Bug is one of those robots that, despite taking punishment, like, even in Series 4, like, it got hit by Pussycat multiple times in the first round melee, and Pussycat's devastating. It still just kept running about. It was always able to survive. Even against Razer, I think it was able to move about with 3 wheels, and then it just, after it lost its second one, it just died. Millian Bug, I love the look. I love it. So next up is Minotaur. A lot of people thought this was a part of who was it? Team Mortis's robot. Even I thought it was part of Team Mortis's robot. It isn't. It's actually just its own robot by its own team. It was helped out by Team Mortis though. Minotaur looks okay, but we barely got to see it, so it's going in the don't know category basically. I don't know where to put it. I'm going to put it there. Speaking of Mortis, absolutely legend in Series 2. Its most successful series. Able to charge about, hammer away. Series 2 was also the series where they sort of vilified Mortis. Like, they made the team look like they're complete assholes that no one should like. Which is a real shame because behind the scenes they were actually quite nice. But they really did like vilify Mortis. From Series 1's design, which this is a much more boxier design to Series 1. It's also a far better improvement, like the armor and all that. I think this is a very good looking robot. I think Mortis deserves a spot at the top. Where should I put it? I'm going to put it just above Kick Robot, but below Ivanhoe, because I think Ivanhoe is so much better, personally. Napalm. Now, Napalm's most successful series, and it's obviously a robot that looks like scrap. I believe the Stegosaurus team once said that something along the lines of, it may look like a complete bag of scraps that has just been stapled together, but somehow it always ends up winning. And Napalm is definitely that situation. This Napalm had a chainsaw, although I believe the chainsaw got destroyed in the first gauntlet run, so they just didn't bother to fix it. Unlike the other Napalms, where Napalm went from a brownie color in Series 3 and then black color in Series 5. This Napalm actually looks like Napalm. It looks like it's flames and all that. Napalm is one of those all-star, I say all-star, it's one of those B-list all-star robots, which you can't help but like and enjoy, even despite the fact that it kind of slipped its way through when it kind of shouldn't. If you were to ask a very young me about Napalm, I would have said Napalm is one of the worst robots I've ever had, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that anymore. I think Napalm's a very good robot. It's an okay robot. That's all I'm going to say. It's a great design. In terms of effectiveness, not very effective. But, it's still okay. It's still a semi-finalist, technically. So, Nemesis. I feel bad for Nemesis, because Nemesis is such a gorgeous-looking robot. And Series 2, they've upgraded it slightly. They've given it these 2 claws at the sides. Allows it to knock down barrels and push through a little bit better. Unfortunately, Nemesis, once again, got screwed over in the arena battle, which is a real shame because it could have done so well. And that's the problem. Nemesis is one of those robots that looks so great. It does a lot of great things during the combat, or during the stages, but as soon as it gets to combat, it just suffers, and it's a shame. It did appear again in the Inferno Insurrection, where it just got set out for a bit of fun. Nemesis is still a great robot. It's still going in an S tier, but I think it's been overdone by quite a few of these other robots. I'm actually going to put it right at the bottom. Oblivion Oblivion is not the prettiest looking robot, all things considered, but it was quite effective. It was a very effective robot. It's just ironic considering that Oblivion 2 in Series 3 and 4 just died under very minimal circumstances, given the fact that the first Oblivion was actually pretty well done. I guess I'll give some credit. I do like the checkerboard look on Oblivion, but that's about it. Its design is very... but in terms of actual effectiveness, it was very effective. Onslaught. It's funny because Onslaught looks like it should have a flipping scoop, and we know that later on it does have a flipping scoop, but here it's got a static scoop. It's literally got a static scoop, and the static scoop is there to push other robots about. Obviously, Onslaught's design, wonderful robot. It's one of those semi all-star robots that everyone knows, everyone can recognize. I think this is a very gorgeous looking robot, even despite the fact that its scoop is static, which does kind of suck. It did break down straight away in its heat final battle against Roadblock, which is unfortunate because I think it would have been interesting to see them actually fight. It would have been funny to see it flip over on its back. But nonetheless, Onslaught's okay. It's a very good robot. I do prefer later versions of Onslaught though. So I'm going to put it right there. Aurak is a very odd looking robot. I don't know what to say about Aurak's design. It's very it's something. It's something. I guess it did okay during its heat. It faced Kilotron and got smashed and flamed, but it's not the prettiest robot in the world, is it? It's not the prettiest robot in the world. Effectiveness wise, it could push. I'm gonna say I'm actually gonna put it in D tier. It's definitely high D tier. It's somewhat effective, but it's not very effective, and it's kind of Pain, on the other hand, the fact that the team had a Pain while working on Pain says all you really need to know anyway. Pain didn't move. It was a box on wheels with tracks and... not on wheels, on tracks, I should say. And has a spear. That's about it. Pain didn't do anything. It just died. It was a dead robot Sunday. It was a DRS. It sucks. Moving on. Pandemonium. Pandemonium is an odd-looking robot. Obviously, Team Pants, they are more infamous for their ant weights, which are wonderful in all sorts of the words, especially Pants and Cannon Fodder and what have you. But in terms of their heavyweights, honestly, there's only really one heavyweight I thought looked quite cool, and that was Hot Pants. But all the others always seem to just... Thunder Pants looked quite good as well, but, we didn't really see that one, did we? But this one, it was at least somewhat effective. I'll say that. It was somewhat effective. So I'm going to at least put it in the effective, but very, odd-looking design. That's all I'm going to say. But another S tier, don't you worry, ladies and gentlemen. It's not all going to be doom and gloom. S tier, Panic Attack. This might be one of the weaker Panic Attack designs because, of course, later on we see much better Panic Attack designs, especially Series 4, 5, and 7. But, my God, is this a great start. It may be a box, it may be a yellow box, but it made the yellow box look appealing. I said this in the... I said this in the other ones, other videos that I've done so far, in the sense that if you can make a box or wedge look cool, it does a lot to a robot's design, and they did that. And I love the spider on the front. I love the look of Panic Attack. It is just gorgeous. The lifting forks may not have been proper lifting forks like we see later on, but they were able to ram into other robots, pierce them. It just fantastic. There's a reason why this thing was champion. I actually prefer Chaos and Cassius personally, but still, Panic Attack S tier for sure. Penetrator. Penetrator is one of those other forget-me-bots. I think I only really remember this one because I was shocked to find the official images for Series 2 back in... What year was it? Was it 2016, 2015? It was around that time. I remember I found it on the archive and just, revealed it to the world afterwards. So that was a fun time. But Penetrator, unfortunate name aside... I'm thinking of the Banter Wars Penetrator. But unfortunate name aside, Penetrator... there's not really anything to say. It's kind of a forgettable robot. Its design isn't really... it doesn't scream anything to you. I think it got eliminated second round. I genuinely don't remember. Phoenix. I'm just going to put Phoenix in F tier. Phoenix at least is going to be the highest F tier, but Jesus Christ. High ground clearance, big triangular design. I hate triangular designs for robots. Got some spikes to the front, big wheels that can easily be popped and damaged. Yeah, everything that could go wrong with that. Piece de Resistance. Team Death's first robot, I believe. A lot of people love Piece de Resistance. In fact, Piece de Resistance is still active as of this year. Although it's not a heavyweight version, it's actually a featherweight version. But it's kind of fun to think about that Piece of Resistance still exists. But nonetheless, Piece de Resistance it's an odd-looking robot, but it's also just it's one of those robot designs that everyone knows and can think about all the time, more or less. It's, the buckled scoop is, I don't know whether or not this is meant to be taken seriously, but it's still an okay robot. It's not, I kind of like the design in a weird way. I love the giant eyeballs. I love the head on top. It's just it's so odd looking and it's so wonderful at the same time. But effectiveness, it wasn't too bad. It just, I don't know where to put Piece de Resistance, if I'm perfectly honest. I don't know. Personally speaking, I do quite like Piece de Resistance a lot. But if I'm totally objective about it, it isn't great. I'm going to put Piece de Resistance in the high D tier because it's definitely I'm starting to think that maybe I should add a B tier for the next ones, because B tier could be my middle ground, because I don't know what else to say about a lot of them. D at the moment is the middle ground, with F just being bad. Plunder Bird 2 to be precise. Now, Plunder Bird 1 was a gorgeous looking machine, but it wasn't very effective. We didn't get to see most of it. Plunder Bird 2, on the other hand, is the most successful of the Plunder Bird machines. It may not have been the fastest, but my god, was that wedge and scoop just so good. Very gorgeous looking robot as well, despite just being a very dark color scheme. Very good looking robot, very effective robot. Don't know what else to say. I loved the Plunder Bird machines in general, and Plunder Bird 2 is definitely one of the better ones in my opinion, and I love it. I'm going to put it in S tier. Below, I'm going to put below these ones. Like I said, I still love Ivanhoe and GBH. I think they're just wonderful robots. So Prometheus, that's another Robot Wars robot name that seems to always get reused. I don't understand why that robot always gets reused all the time, but it does. Prometheus, it's a big silver robot with a saw blade at the front. Very weird looking robot, all things considered. Not the prettiest, not the most spectacular, but it's not dreadful. I'm going to put you in D tier. Okay, so next up is Ramesses II, that's its name. Ramesses II it's a robot that, it wasn't bad, it wasn't great. This is definitely a middle ground robot. However, I do not like its design. I really don't like its design. Its design is just, I just don't think it looks very pleasant. Especially when you consider the fact that the previous one, Scarab, actually looked quite Egyptian looking. This one just doesn't. This one just looks kind of lame. I'll be honest, this one looks really fucking lame. I'm gonna put this in D tier. Again, this is a very high D tier because I actually don't hate it that much, but it's next up is a very weird looking robot, and that's Rampage. This picture in particular doesn't really do it any justice because it's like a cone shaped robot. The wedge at the front and a big saw blade at the back, and it's like cone shaped. It was not very effective at all. Or at least it kind of got screwed over by the arena spike, which destroyed its drive. It's not the most ugliest robot in the world. Like, I will say that its design is okay, I think. Another D tier one. I don't really have anything else to say. That's the problem with a lot of these Series 2 robots, is like, you don't really have a lot to say. They're just, Ram Wombat, on the other hand, is a stock robot, and it's a joke bot. It is a joke bot. There's no way Ram Wombat is meant to be taken seriously. There's no way it's meant to be an actual, regarded in any serious ways. It was there, built by George Francis of all people, and it was there to just be destroyed for the Inferno Insurrection with Nemesis and Sergeant Bash. That's it. It's a joke bot. And now for Razer. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone loves Razer. Razer is one of the greatest robots of all time. Give myself help my throat a bit. Razer in Series 2, it's not the prettiest looking robot compared to the later Razers, because the later Razers are just but it is still an S ranking. It's still a 100% S ranking. The thing about Razer in Series 2 is that despite its early days look, Razer is still a very, very, very effective robot. It is still an immensely impressive robot. But, and this is a big but, Razer doesn't have the wings, which kind of sucks. Obviously, early days. And its wheels haven't got the, what is it called? Gyro wheels. It hasn't got the gyro wheels yet, so it's still like just driving about like normal. And even the tail is very simplified. It's just a spike. There's not as many holes in it. So yeah, Razer, still gorgeous though, still wonderful. One of the greatest robots of all time, without a doubt. Reckless Endangerment, and I'm gonna have to get the size. There you go. Jesus Christ. It's amazing how many robots there are, and I wish they expanded these fucking things. It's really annoying. Reckless Endangerment, it's another robot we never saw. In fact, this one we literally don't know what it looks like, because it's shown off screen for the most part. Ripper's Revenge, or Ripper I should say, not Ripper's Revenge, just Ripper. Ripper, again, didn't really see anything of. It got pushed about by Demolisher. That was about it. Roadblock. Now, Roadblock returns, and Roadblock is mostly the same as the Series 1 version. It's got a bit of a colour scheme change. I do quite like the road sign being used for the for the whole body this time. I don't really like the scrappier look of Roadblock. I kind of miss the cleaner design of it. The scrappier look just doesn't work for me. They could have at least painted it over again. Like that's where I have my issues. I don't really like the sides either. I prefer the Series 1 one personally. So yeah, but it's still mostly the same. S tier. Another S tier, and this is Robodoc. I think Robodoc is fantastic. Obviously it's by the team that would eventually create 101. Robodoc, I love the tracked design. I love it so much. I love I just think it's just such a great looking robot in general. And it's very effective. It barely got damaged at all. Like, even despite having like gaps in the sides, it still was pretty good. Wonderful robot. And, obviously the lifter didn't really do all too much, but fantastic, very effective, beautiful looking robot. Extremely great. Pardon. There's Rocks next. Rocks looks like it's been designed by someone who has epilepsy. It's a very odd looking robot, very colourful. It looks like the Sixth Doctor's coat. That's what it looks like. It looks very odd. And it's made worse by the the weaponry and all that. It didn't really do all that much. I'm not going to say that I completely hate it though. That's the thing. I do quite like the colour scheme. But yeah. That's all I'm going to say about it. Oh jeez. Ron, very basic name, very boring name. It's another one of these robots which is painted on like certain sides but not painted on others, which fucking stupid in my opinion. I don't like the red and the silver. Just paint it either red or silver, or at least give it some sort of detail. It looks like one of those toy cars. It's interesting. Ron in the design stages was like a four-wheeled like Rambot almost, and yet they just changed it into this, which is weird to think about. Ron wasn't too bad. It wasn't ineffective at all. It was very speedy, very good control. It was very, it's a well-made robot. That's the thing. Design-wise, it's just not very great. I'm going to put it in effective, but poor design. I'm going to put it like just in the middle there. This one is Rosebud, I think. We didn't really see it. It was an Axobot. It was one of the few lightweights to survive to the end. It lost to Slippy Strata. That's all I'm going to say. It at least looks okay. Rotor Orsh. Now, Rotor Orsh, there is an interesting story about this robot. So, there is footage of this robot in combat in the Superheroes Showdown. And in this footage, even though it's brief, you don't actually see it, but it charges across the arena. And what had happened in the write-up, thanks to their archived websites, is that it charged across the arena and it actually broke the arena, and they had to stop the fight because it did that. And I think it did it a second time, and then they actually ended up banning the robot from the competition, which is pretty shocking to say at the very least. It's the only robot, or the only team from Robot Wars to ever be banned from Robot Wars. Yeah, so there's a fun fact about Rotor Orsh. I've never really liked its design, to be fair. I think its design looks fucking hideous. But we never saw it, so who am I to judge? Although the brief moment and the obvious write-up from on the website, it seems to say otherwise. This is Rottweiler. Of course, it's in alphabetical order. I'm fucking stupid. Rottweiler, my God. I said it already, I hate triangular-looking robots. I think that is one of the worst design choices you can make. Either make it a wedge or a box, or make it a unique shape, Rottweiler is a triangular robot with a high ground clearance and spikes all around. It is very plain-looking and has a dog picture on the front. Fucking useless. It's going in F tier. Fuck this robot. It's not as bad as Pain and Brute, but it is. Of all the robots that have official images still around, why that one? Speaking of robots which look incredibly ugly, it's Shumi, and this is weird because obviously we know Shumi later on, whether it's from the live events or from Series 3 with the red card design, but Shumi in Series 2 is odd looking robot. It is literally just a black blob with wheels. I don't really like the look of Shumi. Shumi wasn't truly that effective either. I think it got knocked over on its back. It's actually gonna go in F tier. Fuck it. It's just. I'm kind of glad they've changed it for the next series, but not very good at this moment in time. I think this is Shadow Fiend. Again, didn't really see anything of it. It was just a clash of insanity there. Siren, there is an interesting thing about Siren. Siren we saw in the grand final. Siren we know it looks really good looking. I will say this. Siren really does look nice. In terms of effectiveness, I didn't think it really did anything in the Super Showdown final. Kind of just got pitted by Matilda and died. But there is an interesting fact about Siren. That is, in Series 4, it tried to apply him with a robot called Psycho, which was a axe robot. It actually looked like the Series 2 Mortis, which you can see on the screen, hopefully. And what's interesting about Siren's successor, Psycho, is that it fought against a robot called Vector that appeared in Civ 3. And in that fight, it actually dominated the fight, but it actually got stuck in forward drive and was stuck in the arena wall the whole time. Well, Vector just died. Siren's a very, very good-looking robot, but in terms of effectiveness, it really wasn't that effective. I actually really do like the look of Siren, though. So I'm actually going to rank it quite highly on the great design but ineffective category. Slippy Strata, we know this thing won. Of all the highlights, we saw this one just getting picked on, actually. It was just being flipped by Shunt and Matilda. We didn't even see it like in combat. I quite like this octopus at the front, but again, because we didn't really see much of it, it's got to go there. Sockham is another robot which we didn't see anything of, but I like the look of Sockham. It's a shame we never really saw anything of this one. You can only see it briefly in the highlights. It's like in the background being bullied by the house robots, and then it gets pitted. It's, you see it side stranded in the pit, which is a real shame. It's got like this Australian like figure on top, and like kangaroo with like a hat and a boomerang. It looks quite characteristic. It's got like two like fists on the sides as well. Like it's got boxing gloves. Again, never saw it. Unfortunately, we can't judge it, which is a shame. Spartacus, the general team this is. We do know about the general, but we don't know anything about Spartacus. So Spartacus, well, other than write-ups from the websites, again, looks quite cool. Didn't see anything of it. Spin Doctor. Spin Doctor is the robot that destroyed Matilda's tusk. Everyone knows about that. I'm going to sneeze again. 1 minute. Oh, back to your regularly scheduled program. I really shouldn't do these live. But if I don't do them live, then it'll sound all scripted and terrible. Spin Doctor. Spin Doctor is the robot that's infamous for destroying Matilda's tusk. I'm sure everyone has seen the footage from The Ultimate Warrior, from Series 2 and all that. It's spinning around madly. Matilda charges in, and the tusk just gets ripped right off. Like, Spin Doctor was very effective. Design-wise, not the prettiest. Again, it's a very dull-looking robot, but effectiveness, very effective. It just was a kind of like a blob, though. That's the problem. Sting has the opposite problem. It's a very good-looking robot. I love the little like tail axe. And the robot was revealed. They went into detail about how it was made and all that, which is really great. But again, effectiveness, Sting, not very effective. It is quite an unreliable mess. We know this again later on in Series 3. I do like the shell, though. I think it looks great. I love the little tail axe, but that's about it. That's as much as I can go with the praise. At least it can go quite high, I'd say. Talos is... I love the look of Talos. I love Talos's brownie color scheme. Like, this is one of those like very basic looking robots, but it manages to appease me by basically being very... what's the word? Like the visually like bubbly look of the Talos armor is just what sells it for me, really. I think it looks great. It went to the arena stage, so it was very effective. It was able to push like dead metal all the way into a pit, which says a lot about how effective this machine really was. Like this is a great machine. I love it. Genuinely a great robot. Was it the best? Not entirely, but it wasn't dreadful. It goes in A tier. Let's see. I'm going to put it just there. It's around that area. Tantrum. Now, Tantrum is interesting because Tantrum and its successor, T2, which is Tantrum 2, it's weird to think about because they look nothing alike. They look like they're from two completely different teams. And yet, they're not. I really like Tantrum's design. It's a great design, but in terms of effectiveness, it was very easy, pulled about, pushed about. It didn't look like it was going to win much. It was just a shame because I think it could have done really well. It looked successful. It looked like it could do some stuff. But we've never really got the chance to see it. So it's going to go in great design, but quite ineffective. I'm going to put it quite highly, though. because I think Tantrum does look really nice. Technophobic, on the other hand, is an effective robot, but again, this is one of those really ugly looking robots. It's sort of like a pillbug. It's like a woodlouse. You know, it looks like that with a big spike at the front. I'm going to put this in the just effective but bad design look, because, or poor design, I should say, because they're not dreadful designs. Obviously, internally they're probably very good. But yeah, still, nonetheless, Tender Caress. Tender Harris looks like it should be a full body spinner, but it isn't. It's actually just a robot with 2 saw blades at the front. It's a very odd looking robot. It's got this tiger pattern, which is weird because no robot in robots really use that tiger pattern. If you really think about it, like, you'd think robots and robots would try to use that tiger like color scheme with orange and black stripes, but no. Instead, it's barely ever been used. Like, Tender Harris is probably one of the only examples I can think of, other than maybe, it was Killer Cat. No, that was Spotty, wasn't it? Yeah, they've always gone Spotty Cat looks, but never tiger looks. Tender Harris wasn't very useful. Its design is very confused, I will say that, but it's at least visually appealing. It wasn't effective, though. It's going to go in the good look, but very ineffective. Demolisher, we've seen Demolish in Series 1, so technically we should be able to rank this, but unfortunately we didn't really see it in Series 2. But we do know about it in Series 1, so should we put it on the rank or should we put it in the U? I'm going to put it in the U. And the only reason why I'm putting it in U is because we didn't see what it did in Series 2 to win the championship. We just know it did. Up next is the Mule. The Mule is a very unique looking robot. It's despite the name The Mule, it doesn't look like a mule. It's very colourful, very patchy. However, just because it doesn't look like a mule doesn't mean that it doesn't have certain aspects. Like, I love how it's got these kicking legs that look like a mule or a donkey's leg, like kicking out like that. It's got a forklift at the front. It's a very slow robot. Like, the problem with Plunder Bird's heat, and I think the reason why it kind of won that heat was because all the robots were very, very slow. The Mule is one of those slow robots, but I quite like the design. It was very effective as well. Yeah, the Mule, I think the Mule deserves an A ranking. It's low A ranking, and obviously later on they do come back with Wheelie Big Cheese and the Big Cheese, which are just phenomenal robots. They're in my opinion, they're like a million times better. Up next is the Parthian Shots. This robot is infamous for just not working at all. It didn't work in Series 2, and it didn't work later on in Series 3. It's not even like a very good looking robot either. It's just kind of, it's just useless. So I'm just F tier. It's going to be a high F tier because at least there's some aspect that if it could work, it might have been fine, I'm sure, but it didn't. It sucks. The end. FUD. I think that's FUD. Yeah, it is FUD. FUD, it looks kind of cool, but again, we never saw it. The only thing we saw was Simon ramming into it and sparks flying as it rammed into it. That's about it. That. Next up is Thump, or the unidentified lightweight, but it's assumed to be Thump because it looks like it says Thump on the front. It's definitely got a big T. Very stripy robot. We don't know the identity of it. If anyone knows the identity of this robot, although you probably can't see because it's so itty bitty and tiny on screen, please tell us. Do you remember the Series 2 lightweights at all? Please, anyone? I think it is called FUD though. It has to be. It has not FUD, Thump on the front. Yeah. Again, we don't know. Vercingetorix. We know about Vercingetorix, and Vercingetorix is later on Vercingetorix is a very pretty robot, but I'm going to be honest, I don't really like the Vercingetorix from Series 2 or 3, for that matter. I think it's a very dull-looking robot. It wasn't that effective either. Like, it was kind of unreliable. So, it's, as pains me as do this, because I love Vercingetorix, I'm going to have to put it in D. Vector. No, not Vector. Victor. I always get confused. There's one called Vector and one called Victor. I should remember these by now. Victor, I remember more from Series 3 because of what happened during the Trident fight, but here, I don't really remember that much. I know that it used its blade against a barrel and actually cut through the barrel, which is kind of cool. But nonetheless, it's a unique design. I quite like the design. It's kind of funky looking. Again, it's one of the. It's like Piece of Resistance. It's yeah. Now, Warthog, another middleweight clasher, another one that broke down and didn't really do much. I think I'm starting to realize why these were highlights and never actually shown on screen. Because if most of them are, how do I put it? If most of them ended up breaking down, that would not have been very appealing to see on screen, would it? I said previously I quite like its design, but it's not very effective. It's just one of those situations where, I can't really say much. Wheelosaurus on the other hand. Wheelosaurus is an interesting case because it's one of those, like, it's what I like to call the beautiful ugly. The beautiful ugly is when you have a robot or a design which is ugly, but it's beautifully ugly. Like, you don't like the look of it. It doesn't look very appealing, but it looks, at least you shouldn't like the look of it. You shouldn't find it appealing, but you do. And I think, Wheelosaurus is a beautifully ugly robot. Very beautifully ugly. Effectiveness-wise, it wasn't that effective, let's be honest. It destroyed Sergeant Bash's Flamethrower. Give it that. But great design. Absolutely love Wheelosaurus. In fact, it's probably one of my favorites in the great design category. Not effective. Speaking of great designs, the last two, in fact, Whirling Dervish looks great. We didn't really see it do much. It didn't do anything to Panic Attack. Like, Panic Attack just brushed off the attacks from this overhead spinning full body spinner robot. It looks great, but again, not much to say. So, over there. And finally, the final one, Wizard. I love the design of Wizard. I love it so much. I actually think this is better than Witch's design, although Witch is still a great design. Obviously, it's not effective. It's not effective at all. I'm just going to say that right now. But Wizard just looks gorgeous. Wizard is such a gorgeous looking robot. I mean it. Like, it is so wonderful to look at. So basically, it's just this giant wizard hat, and what I love about it, it's got these little colourful lights around the rim of the hat, which makes it look, like it's casting a spell or it's magic or something like that. It just looks so amazing. I love it so much. It's a shame it sucks because it doesn't really work that very well. But it actually did better than its successor, funnily enough. Nonetheless, Wizard, I love the look of it. I think it's great. But effectiveness 0. So that is it for the tier list ranking. Now let's see if I can actually zoom in a bit because it's a bit far away now, isn't it? No, I can. It looks dreadful. So the effect. So overall, Series 2 had tons of competitors, and Infested has so many competitors. Imagine Series 3 or 4, or 7. The ones which have even more. Fucking hell. I'm not looking forward to those longer ones, if I'm perfectly honest, because they're just going to take ages. I might have to do the short ones first. But nonetheless, Series 2, a lot more in the S ranking, a lot more in the A rankings, I guess. There's a lot of robots which had great designs, but just weren't very effective. And it's interesting because the ones that were effective, they all look very similar to each other. They're very much like silver boxes, and that's it. obviously the worst of the worst, in my opinion, are the ones which, ironically enough, all of them look like very scrappy and poorly put together robots. There's only one joke bot in this series, although you could argue, Megahertz, Milliamberg, and Nemesis are, but I think they did decently enough to warrant higher rankings. Obviously Series 2 brought in a few more stars like Razer and Behemoth and Panic Attack, all those wonderful robots. It is a shame that a lot of them are in the unrankable section because, like I said, if at all they decide ever to release the unseen footage from the grudge matches, it'd be wonderful to see because it would give us a better idea of what the hell happened in these matches. But until then, it's great to see a lot more robots. It's a pain in the ass to do these in tier lists, so don't expect Series 3 or 4 to be next. That's all I'm going to say. I'm probably going to do the shorter ones, maybe the US series, maybe Nickelodeon, in fact, because that's even shorter. Just don't expect Series 3 to be next, because that one's going to be ages. And this one took long enough as it is. I mean, it's over an hour and 30 minutes of me talking and coughing and spewing all over the place, But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have reached the end, I hope you can see my rankings. See you next time.